Hello, I'm Steve Kime with the City of Enid. Thank you for joining us today as we present another in our series on highlighting veterans. My special guest today is Gean Atkinson. Gean is a retired captain in the U.S. Navy, and he has an advertising agency or firm in Oklahoma City. And we'll talk about Gean's involvement in the military, advertising, his connection to Enid, Oklahoma. But first, I just kind of want to share a little bit about Gean's extensive bio. He served in the legislature of all things, but we want to start that he is the president of Atkinson Advertising Associates. He was also the national communications director for the country's 10th largest personnel company. He also directed the advertising and marketing for one of the fastest retail growing concepts, Glamour Shots. Remember Glamour Shots? I remember Glamour Shots. I was not in the Glamour Shots, but I do remember that organization. Gean has been very successful in his advertising business as he has garnered several advertising awards. In 1975, he founded his advertising associates. He won awards throughout the country, including New York City's Advertising Club Andy Awards, the Oklahoma City Advertising Club Addy Awards, I should say, IABC Silver Quill Award, and the list goes on. That's just a few. He has a bachelor's and master's degree in journalism, and he's taught advertising and marketing classes at the graduate and the upper graduate level. He served during operations of Desert Shield and Storm when he was recalled to active duty, and he's a decorated veteran for his service in Vietnam, and also, again, as I mentioned, he retired as captain in the Navy. And Gean also served as a member of the House of Representatives, and if that's not all, he's the author of a couple books that hopefully we'll get to talk to a little bit about that. I am out of breath with that extensive bio. Please welcome to the Enid Television Network studios, Gean Atkinson. Gean, it's always good to see you, my friend.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for being here. Right off the bat, thank you for your service to our great country.
Thank you.
As we highlight different veterans here on the Enid Television Network, you're one of those that we just wanted to celebrate along with all of our veterans. So thank you for being in Enid today. Well, tell us right off the bat, advertising is kind of synonymous. When I think of Gean Atkinson, I think of advertising and other things, but how did you get involved with advertising?
Well, really a very easy way. I went to OU and went to an advertising class and was taken in by it and enjoyed it, and started out in public relations and then shifted to advertising, and have been in it ever since. I opened my company in 45, so not 45, that's when I was born. I opened my company in 75.
Okay.
And so it's been all that period of time.
So it started with the class down at OU, and then you have your military career, which we'll talk about in just a few moments. But where did all these awards come from? You have to have a special talent, niche, credentials, abilities, because it's very competitive. So tell us, where did these awards come from?
I've just been very
hard work.
Well, of course that, but I've been very fortunate in working with some of the really great, talented people. And when you have those kinds of people, and you have a good vision of what you want to do, then along the way you're going to win some awards. So
35, 40 years later, when it comes to advertising, you started your company in 1975, and here we are in 2017. What would you say are the major differences in advertising and marketing during the 70s all the way up to the early 2000s? What would be some key differences?
Well, the biggest change has been, of course, electronics and the advent of social media and things like that. We used to have to take a project, an ad, and it might take us 2 weeks to get it done. Today we can have it done in just a few hours. So that speed has made a big difference because it's lowered the price of what we do. So that's the biggest thing I think is the electronic media and all those things. When I started, Steve, there were 3 radio stations, 3 television stations.
Life was simple.
That's right, it was simple. And now you have to be very careful to make sure your message gets to the right audience.
My special guest today on our Veteran Show is Gean Atkinson, and as a viewer, you're maybe watching the show and saying, man, that guy's awful familiar. I think I've seen him in Enid or something like that. I know you have a connection to Enid. We want to talk a little bit more about some of the committees that you serve on with individuals from Enid, but also there's a gentleman named Bob Ford and Doug France that you have a kind of history with. What can you tell us about those two individuals?
Well, first of all, they're both heroes. They're my heroes. We were together in college. Doug and I were together at Officer Candidate School for the Marine Corps. And Bob, I was at his wedding before he left for Vietnam. So he was, I think he left the very next day. Those gentlemen served our country so well and continue to serve the community so well that they're just, they're heroes in my book.
And you're not the only one that, when I visit with individuals, you're not the only one that makes that that claim, if you will. Everybody says they are heroes, that's for sure.
They'll never say it about themselves.
Right.
So.
To the humble individuals. Well, let's talk a little bit about your military background. I understand you were in the Marines, you were an officer in the Marines. However, you finished out your tenure or your service in the Navy, if you will. So let's start with the Marines. Gean, tell us about your role. You went to Officer Candidate School, but just tell us about your days in the Marine Corps, if you would.
I got commissioned in '67 and then went directly to Quantico. I'd already gone to Officer Candidate School, Doug and I and some other people. But then I was in Quantico for 6 months for officer training and then went to a specialized school, then was deployed to Vietnam, the northern part of Vietnam. I was stationed there for 13 months and I started out as a platoon leader and ended up being a company commander. And it was simply because we just had the Tet Offensive and we were short of people. And so everybody was moving up to another thing. I went ahead and did that for 13 months. And then I was transferred to headquarters of the Marine Corps in Washington. And I served there for the rest of my active duty and then came back and stayed in the reserves and was with an artillery unit, some other units. Along came, this is what's wonderful about the service. If you miss an opportunity once, you'll get it later on. The Navy opened up a new program for public affairs. And of course, that was my field. So I had a lot of friends from the media that were in that program. They asked me to come and join, and so I did an under-service transfer. That's where you can transfer from one service to the other. And I got into the Navy and was in it for 18 years. Commanded units in Kansas City, Dallas, Oklahoma City. And then I got recalled to active duty for Desert Storm. So I was getting ready to have my second war. And I was sent to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. And I was in charge of the Joint Information Bureau. And that is the headquarters for all information throughout the United Arab Emirates for American forces and Allied forces. So that's what I did for till the war was over and then came back. So it was like my daughter, when she was crying when I was getting ready to leave, she said, "Why do you have to go? You've already been to war." I said, "Well, who better than me? I know what I'm doing." So you have different kind of reactions with your family.
So, Gean, from Desert Storm to Vietnam, how would you summarize your career? Because you just shared with us all the opportunities from the Marines to the Navy, the public affairs work and things of this nature. How would you summarize your experience in the military?
It was just wonderful. It was just wonderful to be able to serve my country and to be able to go all the places I've gone and have all the different jobs I've had and the challenges I've had. It was truly a wonderful experience. Probably one of the most memorable experiences I've ever had.
Our special guest today on our Veterans Program is Gean Atkinson from Oklahoma City. Gean, are you the president of Advertising Associates, or what is your title besides being boss?
Well, that's it. And if you need the trash emptied, I'm available for that as well. So
well, anyway, he's Mr. Advertising to me, and Gean and I were connected years ago through the Oklahoma City Rotary Club, and we had a mutual friend in Tulsa. And Gean ended up sponsoring me along with Ray Ackerman and Jadon Harris, as we're throwing out these names that you don't know about, but they all sponsored me in the Rotary Club. But I was first introduced to Gean and was made aware of his civic involvement. Rotary is one thing, but being involved in all kinds of community functions is another thing. I know, Gean, that you're involved in the Oklahoma's Capital Preservation Commission. Tell us what that Capital Preservation Commission is all about.
That was formed by the legislature in '81, and it was designed to monitor the things that went on in the Capitol so that they all maintain a certain standard. You know, the Capitol was started, opened in 1917, and without a lot of foreplanning. And so you got people doing anything they wanted to it, any kind of colors they wanted, anything else. So the Capitol Preservation Commission was a commission that you had to go through us before you could change anything. And that was to be able to keep the consistency of the Capitol and the decorations and things of that artwork.
Some of the other civic involvement that Gene's involved in, really, he was president of the Rotary Club of Oklahoma City, also served on the Committee of 100, trustee of the Cherokee National Historical Society, and also University of Central Oklahoma, UCO Foundation. Now, I know there is another individual here in Enid named John Groendyke that you have a relationship with. Tell us about your relationship with John.
Well, I met Johnny Groendyke in 1963 at Wentworth Military Academy. I had gone up there for my freshman year, and he was, of course, in command of the whole battle group. But we played football together, we ran track together, and became friends, and have maintained that friendship all these years.
And that was when?
63.
63. Interesting. So, Gene, with all your involvement in civic causes, what's the significance of giving back? Somebody's watching this interview and they may have more time. Maybe they've retired, not retired, but they may have more time, or they're thinking about giving back to the community. Why is it significant to you?
Well, because that's the way I was brought up. My father was a physician, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom, so she had time to do a lot of these things. And I grew up watching them do this. And later on, I had these things come back to me from other people. And so when I started, as soon as I got a chance to be active in my community, I wanted to give back. I wanted to help people whenever I could, and that's a wonderful way of fulfilling yourself.
Very good. Well, Gene, you're part of our Veterans series that we've been doing with a variety of individuals to highlight our men and women that have served here in the Enid community. As a veteran, would you tell the viewers, why is it important to celebrate Memorial Day? That's earlier in the year, but why, as a veteran, is it important that we celebrate Memorial Day?
Well, of course, Memorial Day and Veterans Day are both an opportunity to recognize the service of Americans before and after us. Memorial Day, of course, for people, all veterans, and Veterans Day is for those people really who have passed on. And it's time to stop and look back and think about the contributions that got you where you are with the freedoms that you have. Most of us, most of us have someone we've lost in the service. My uncle was lost in World War II. And we don't think about them every day, but there's a time you stop and think about what they did for all of us and the sacrifice they made for us.
That's an important message for all of us. Thank you, Gene. Gean Atkinson, our special guest today as we highlight veterans. We'll have more with Mr. Atkinson right after this. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying with us and joining us today as we highlight veterans here in the Enid area on our very special Veterans Day program. Our special guest today is retired Captain U.S. Navy Gean Atkinson, and Gean is president of Atkinson Advertising Associates in Oklahoma City, also very involved in the community in Oklahoma City, has a lot of mutual friends in Enid, Oklahoma, and also is the author of a couple books that we'll talk about for a few moments. Gean, earlier in our conversation, we were talking about your involvement in the Historic Preservation Commission regarding the Capitol in Oklahoma City. Now, I'm more so familiar with the Friends of the Capitol, and I think that's where you have an opportunity to buy a paver, put a loved one's name or a friend's name or your own name in this paver to help in the, I guess, restoration of the Capitol. What, as viewers here in Enid, Oklahoma, in the area, what should we know about how can we get involved with historic preservation or Friends of the Capitol?
Well, let me start with Friends of the Capitol. That's an organization, when I was on the Capitol Preservation Commission that was formed by Lou Kerr, Paul Meyer, and myself. We had the Arts Council come to us and say, we've got a traveling art show that's going to come to the Capitol, but they have to be insured. And we can't pay for it from the Arts Council. The state self-insures, so they can't pay for it. So one of the members of the CPC said, I'll pay for it, and wrote a check for it. But we realized that wasn't going to work forever. So we formed Friends of the Capitol, which is a 501c3 that is empowered to give money to the Capitol. And we do that by selling pavers, and pavers are about the size of this right here. And they're marble, and they go on the south plaza of the Capitol. And for you, when you buy one, or what you take one, sponsor it, you get a name on it. You can put anybody's name that contributed to Oklahoma. And then you can go and put their bio on the website, and you can put, it's a locator, tell you exactly where it is. You put a picture there if you want to.
Right.
However you want to commemorate that person. And then you can go out to the Capitol, see where it is, and go visit it. And it's, we have over 2,000 of those pavers now since we started this program.
Now, isn't there a kiosk there at the Capitol by the gift shop or something where you can look at the computer online to see all the people who have made contributions and they have their photo?
Normally there is, but with the Capitol being in this disarray, I can't guarantee it'll be
It seems
there.
like I remember a kiosk being there at one
But
time.
what you can do is you can go to the internet and ask for Oklahoma Friends of the Capitol, and it'll take you to the website.
Okay.
Give you all the information you need, give you the context, give you a way to order one. We have corporate pavers available, which is something new, and then we have individual personal pavers. So it's a great opportunity to remember someone. It's a great gift to give to someone who has everything. I've sent my grandfather one, and I've put different relatives in on it, and it's great for the grandchildren. They'll go in and they'll look and they'll see about their granddad.
The last time I was at the Capitol, I remember walking up the South Steps area, and you can see all those large pavers with people's names in it, and you know there's a special connection to that person because they were either honoring them or their contribution to Oklahoma. So
that's right.
It's a great idea. And again, it's a 501c3, so it's a nonprofit organization.
Tax deductible.
Tax deductible, so if you want to help out the Friends of the Capitol, that is one way to do so. Just a few moments ago, Gene, we were talking about the significance of Memorial Day, and I want to talk a little bit more about Veterans Day, since that's kind of our emphasis on our show today. Can you describe to me what would be the ideal Veterans Day celebration as a veteran?
I think it would be to attend the ceremonies that are held with it, to have your family together, and to give thanks for the circumstances that allowed you all to be together. We have a friend in Rotary, Steve, that I was talking to her one day, a very accomplished young woman, and she asked me when I was in Vietnam, and I told her, and she said, my dad was there. Come to find out her dad was missing in action, and so she grew up without him. And those every time I see her, she could be my child. You know, there's so many people out there that didn't get the benefit of their loved ones because they sacrificed them in service of our country. So I'd want to remember them. I'd want to enjoy the fact that I had my family and had together, make sure they understand what's important about that day.
Well, I think it's important that we do set aside the time, energy, and just the moment to highlight our veterans, especially on Veterans Day, but each and every day. So. Earlier, Gene, you were talking about Bob Ford and your relationship going to officer candidate school with Doug France and working on different various committees with John Groendyke. Tell us some more about your connection to Enid, Oklahoma.
Well, it's amazing, really. Some years ago, our firm did a lot of business in Enid. We had several clients here. And so I got to know a lot of people from Enid, and they pop up everywhere. I was on a cruise one time.
That's a good thing, right?
It is. This guy was on a cruise in the 70s, in a small boat, and every place we went, we met other people. We went to this one place, and I looked, and the biggest boat in the whole yacht club there said Enid, Oklahoma on the back of it. So what is this? I'm out in the middle of the Caribbean, and it's Enid. I got out and got to talking to him. He was one of the Cummings, of course, and we became friends. And he came to visit me in Oklahoma City, and so there we are in the middle of nowhere, and you find someone
On
from
the back of the
Enid.
boat. Now, for the record, we want to make sure the back of that boat said Enid, Oklahoma. It is not a City of Enid property.
No, it is not. Nor was it my boat, so I wanted to make that clear with him.
So the City of Enid does not own any boats that are in the Caribbean. Thank you, Gene, for bringing that up. Okay. All right. Anybody else relationship with here in Enid through your advertising years and civic involvement?
Well, I'm afraid I'll forget somebody, but
Sure.
It's through the bank that we handled here. We met several people, and
Okay.
and it's just a wonderful town. Enid is, and I would come. We had clients all over the state, and you kind of judged the town when you'd go to it. Would you want to live here?
Sure.
And Enid certainly is one of the places I would always think I'd want to live. Even got a ticket here one time, so
Well,
I feel like a part of the community.
Sure. Thank you for your contribution to those coffers here. Okay. You are an author of several books. There's a book in the making that has to deal something with the casino or whatever. But let's go to the first book. Forgive me. I think we have a picture that we'll put on the screen. Help me with the title and what is this all about?
Well, the first book was done in '88, and it was called Pilots of My Soul. And it was a chronological novel, if you will, about my family. I was into genealogy then.
Okay.
And so that was something I could leave my kids that someday they might want to read it. The next one,
Yeah.
the next one was one called Internal Invasion. I just returned from Desert Storm, and I'd been active in the intelligence community and all that. So this was a story about, before terrorism really was active, about a terrorist attack to kill millions of Americans, which many people thought was prophetic. I even got a couple of calls on it. And then the third one was one called Blood Moon at Cabin Creek.
That's the one that I was familiar with.
That's right, and that was done about a battle that happened in northeast Oklahoma during the Confederate War, and it actually used several. It was a time travel novel, and I had several of the names of my ancestors in it. I had gone to that battleground with a friend of mine, and just as the sun started setting, he said most of them fell here, and we looked around, and it was just an empowering moment to realize that if things had happened differently, we wouldn't have been there.
Right.
If my ancestors hadn't survived that battle, I wouldn't be here. So that was the reason we started the book, and ended up, it was chosen as a centennial project for Oklahoma.
Very good. Well, Gene, you've won numerous awards in advertising. You've consulted. You served in the legislature. You've served some Oklahoma governors and military service. You touched on the reason you were mindful to give back to the community was your upbringing. So here's another question to piggyback on that. With all the successes and all the achievements and credentials that you've had, besides the upbringing, what would you contribute your success to achieving those things?
I think I have a personal philosophy that everybody's upbringing is flawed to some degree. Some people have too much attention, some people don't have enough. Some people have too much money, some people don't have enough. But once you've finished and once you're raised, it's up to you what you do. So if you want to make it a success, it doesn't matter what happened before. It's all up to you. I was fortunate. I had a wonderful, loving upbringing. So I never had any idea that it would be anything but that. But I have a lot of friends that didn't enjoy that. And yet they decided they weren't going to let that hold them back. And they became wonderful parents and wonderful people in the community, and wonderful fathers and grandfathers. So it's just a way of being grateful for what you have and helping people that don't have it.
And I think once that is done for you or provided for you, that is the catalyst to do for others, to set the stage for your kids or your family members to be successful.
You know, I mentioned earlier that in the 70s I was into genealogy. I did a lot of research on my family. And it occurred to me that how sometimes somebody's life is summed up in 2 sentences. And I thought at that point, if I if mine's going to be 2 sentences, I want it to be 2 good sentences.
Very good. I like that. Retired Captain U.S. Navy Gean Atkinson is our special guest today on our Veterans Day program. Thank you for joining us. We have one more question for Gean, and we'll do that right after this. Welcome back to the show as we feature veterans here on this Veterans Day special. Gean, as we close out our program today, there's a young person that may be watching the program and they've heard about your corporate credentials, your education with a bachelor's degree, master's degree, consulting legislative leaders. They've listened to all of this and they may be considering a career in education, maybe the military, or somewhere else. What words of encouragement or what words of direction would you provide that young person who's considering maybe the corporate world or military?
You know, and I've had that happen to me a lot over the years. I feel a special obligation to give them the best information I can. But I can't tell you how many people were mowing my lawn or doing something for me that asked about the Navy or the Marine Corps and gave me a chance to direct them to the right people. I'm on Senator Langford's Academy Selection Board, and so we examine all the records of people who want to go to the service academy. But I tell my people that it's got to start way before then. It means that as people in junior high, you have to decide you want to do that or you're interested in it, and then get people like me to direct you where you go to find the information. Because not every one of them is going to be exactly what you want.
Right.
If you want to be in business, what kind of business? Think it through. And then people like me will help you get into that area and learn about it. Not everything is as much fun as it looks like on the outset. You have to learn about it, and you have to learn about what will work for you and what will help you make a life and something you're proud of.
Very good. Great advice. Thank you for sharing. Gean Atkinson, again, thank you for your service. Thanks for being here at the ETN studios today.
Thank you, Steve.
Appreciate it. And thank you for joining us today on our special Veterans Day program. Our special guest, retired Captain U.S. Navy, also served in the Marines, Gean Atkinson. So until next time, I'm Steve Kime. Make it a great day.